The past few weeks have been filled with concerns about kidnapped victims in Abuja, whose families have been put through a traumatizing experience of waiting for the release of their loved ones. Finally, security operatives in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, a collaboration between the police and the Nigerian army, has resulted in victims being rescued. Victims who were kidnapped at Zuma 1 area of Buhari Area Council of the nation's capital city on January 2, 2024. Confirming the rescue of the victims in a statement on Sunday, the FCT Police Public Relations Officer, Josephine Ade, said operatives successfully rescued the victims around Kajuru Forest in Kaduna State at about 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. Also in response to the rising cases of kidnapping in the Federal Capital Territory, the Nigeria police over the weekend paraded 29 suspected kidnappers and other criminals arrested in the Buhari Area Council, the latest hotbed of kidnapping in the nation's capital. The arrest followed the recent launch of the Special Intervention Squad by the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, as part of the strategy to fortify the security landscape of Abuja. Joining us on this show this morning to discuss the collaboration between the police and the Nigerian army in rescuing the kidnapped victims is Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, former army spokesperson. General Usman, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
Okay, General, before now, we heard of kidnappings in the northwest, the northeast, the east, other parts of the country. But now it looks like Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, is becoming the hotbed of kidnappings. The kidnappers are so bold, so audacious now, they are even getting close to the seat of power in Nigeria. There have been attacks reported in Buhari, in Kurudu. In Kurudu, in fact, they attacked an army estate. And then, of course, you know, kidnappings in other parts of Abuja. What are the implications of the Federal Capital Territory, the seat of government, becoming unsafe? We hope that we will not wake up one day and hear that kidnappers have become so bold they want to attack the Aso Villa. What are the implications? What does this say to us?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you once again. Happy New Year. Good to see you. The implications are quite enormous, given the fact that the Federal Capital Territory, like you rightly said, is a seat of power. And anybody who has control over the Federal Capital Territory definitely has control over Nigeria. But be it as it may, the implications, like I said, is quite obvious, but it is not even the issue of the implications, so to speak, but how did we come to this particular instance that we are in? Quite a number of factors, and to a large extent, when you are dealing with those factors, if you trust them, you will definitely come to the solution or how to mitigate these issues. You are quite aware there have been concerted efforts, you know, in other parts of the country to deal with, you know, security challenges, particularly insurgency, banditry, and kidnapping. And of course, the areas have been, you know, untenable for most of those criminal elements, and they tend to look for a greener or, you know, greener pasture, so to speak. And Abuja seems to provide the total ingredients. If you look at the contiguous states, take for instance Kogi with all the forests, Nasarawa and Kaduna State, and so on. So, but beyond that, we have to understand actually, even the terrorists are getting wiser now, that terrorism, we all know that it is just a facade, it is not true, that it is ideological. Well, they gave it a semblance of ideological in the sense that religious bigotry and what have you. But deep inside, the leaders, they know it was just materialistic oriented. As such, I think they are getting wiser. They realize they have been risking their lives for no apparent reason. Therefore, kidnapping seems to be the best option, more so the risks are minimal as compared to, terrorism and insurgency, so to speak. And Abuja seems to provide the natural soft ground for them because the money is there and, of course, people. And by the way, the solution, the ultimate solution to the end of kidnapping is stoppage of the payment of ransom. But it is easier to say so than done. Why? Because once you are not involved, you can say so. But if any of your relations, your spouse, your child is involved, definitely you do everything. And that is what the criminal elements are taking advantage of, the gullibility of an average Nigerian, to pay ransom. As such, payment of ransom, so long as it is there, definitely kidnapping will thrive. But again, so you look at the other ingredients that support this nefarious criminal activity. People are really, really in their needs of means of livelihood, and they just have to do everything to make ends meet. And some of them, unfortunately, they go into criminality. There are people that will aid and abet. Take, for instance, the issue of informants and the deficit of trust among the various components of Nigerian society, especially between the government and the governed. So people don't have this sense of obligation to report criminals, or, they don't even have qualms to participate in criminality. And simply because there are certain things that are not in place. What are those things in place? Anytime you see criminality or some of these non-state actors occupying things, they are just filling a vacuum that is missing. Take, for instance, the local government system, I kept on saying, is not working. So security challenges that could have been dealt with at local level have not been dealt with. So you elevate it to the state is overwhelmed, push certain things to the federal government. And so you see that the security agency seems to be working, assiduously in various fronts, when under normal circumstances, their job is basically to react.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, General Usman. I hear you when you talk about how paying ransom could cause this kidnapping industry to thrive. We heard, the father of the kidnapped girls, Mr. Mansour Al-Kadrias, thank the crowdfunding, team, people for crowdfunding ransom for him. So even in his appreciation, he had mentioned that. And you're right in saying that there are no many options when 5 of his daughters are in captivity, 1 of them already killed. What options are left? Is that not a sign that the security agencies have failed? Because if you ask people not to pay ransom, but there's no rescue, then what options do parents like Mr. Al-Kadri and parents like Mr. Ario, what options do they have? Beyond that is also the police's response. In terms of another question, what I wanted to ask you was the police's response by the SIS, Special Intervention Scheme by the police, squad, thank you. Special Intervention Squad recently launched by the IG of Police. What impact do you think this new squad will have on tackling issues, or, like kidnapping, this high rate of kidnapping that we've seen in recent times?
First, to address the first question, I think it is not that the security forces have failed. I think it is the whole Nigerian society that is failing Nigerians. Because the security forces, just like I was saying before you interjected, you are just part of the reactionary forces. That means there should be kind of proactive things that need to be done. And who should do it? Other components of Nigerian society led by the government. So basically, you should understand that security forces are just reactive forces. They are there when things happen. They are supposed to interject to deal with it. And there are various layers of security forces, or let's say you start from the policing system before you call in the military. So you look at it from that perspective. Then I made reference to the fact that actually it is easier said than done, because once you are involved, definitely you jettison all these things. And by the way, when you talk about that, it is not just enough to say, well, we will stop ransom, but you have to create an enabling environment that will facilitate or making the payment of ransom very difficult, or even if it happens, how you track and deal with arrest the perpetrators. That means you have to think of the use of technology, the data, and every day we kept on collecting data here and there, but it has not been harmonized. But we have had instances when they talked about registration of SIM card. I know as of that time, it has tremendous positive impact on the security, mitigation of security challenges, because I know the late Boko Haram leader came out to even threaten the then Minister of Communication and Digital Economy because of that measure. So that means it was working. But unfortunately, typical of Nigerian society, we always have policy somersault. We don't follow through. The monitoring and evaluation system and the feedback mechanism, they are not there. Otherwise, by now, we should have done that. And I was even made to understand, again, the issue of coordination in terms of all these entities that collect data. Somewhere, I think the NIMSI was saying that they have these facilities, but nobody has come looking for. So definitely there is need for more collaboration, cooperation among the security agencies and coordination by an entity. So that is by the way. Then coming back to the issue of the Special Intervention Squad, is about time, in the sense that if you look at it, even among the military, the special forces are doing great and marvelous job. And dealing with security challenges such as kidnapping, it's the responsibility of the police. And unfortunately, over time, we have not repositioned the policing system to do the right thing. What is the investment in terms of the number of the policemen and women we have in this country? What is the level of investment in terms of equipping the police and training the police to meet up with the 21st century crime landscape, especially in this our Nigerian society, which is very, very dynamic, and where, the criminals tend to move one step ahead of the society, as it were. So these are the ingredients. So even if you have it, and you do not have complementary effort to support this, we will continue to have the problem we're having. But most importantly is to ensure that the well-being of the Nigerian society is enhanced, in the sense that, people should live above bare necessities of life, so that the temptation to be into criminal activities will not be there. And even those that are not criminally minded, for them to be enticed simply because they want to make ends meet. Take, for instance, the issue of informants. And people have rightly said, without the informants, and by the way, no kidnapping has ever taken place without the role of an informant. And in most instances, sadly, so to speak, they are associated with the victims or the victim's family. So how do they get involved in this kind of thing? If the system is working, even if criminal activity will take place, it can easily be tracked. And I know in those days, even among the police, I know at the state level, even at the police headquarters, there is a ransom money statutory allocated, so that they can, in conjunction with the police, you pay the ransom and track it, and of course arrest, the criminals elements. So basically, these are things that we should not be thinking about the physical aspect of it. There are other intelligence and information aspects and the use of technology that have to complement the effort of this, Special Intervention Squad. Okay.
You said we should blame the people, but how do you blame a people that has already rendered helpless? How do you blame a people that has...
Well, first, possibly...
Hang on a minute, please.
Possibly, you have to understand...
Let me finish. Let me finish my point, then you react to it. Let me finish my point.
Okay.
How do you blame a people...
All right, so thank you.
...that have been neglected largely? That we've had couple of attacks, series of attacks. It's become a recurring decimal. I get your point about lack of training and all of that. I get your point. And in fact, in all of this, I also commiserate with the police. Because in their account, they said that some police officers had first come there and they engaged the shooter with the bandits and they were hurt. My commiserations to the police. But what is the modalities for reaction time and for reinforcement, which a lot of people feel falls short? Today we are giving the commendation to the military, but we're also having other stories that are saying that one of the family members, for instance, said they paid the bandits the ransom, which we've not been able to independently verify. Also, we are having discordant tunes. Why is there a time lapse since that thing happened and you expected the forces to be able to swing into action? So apart from the talk about funding and training and all of that, which we admit, and I totally admit that with you, with the little resource they also have, do you think they've done a lot better?
Well, I think we have to go back by my definition of people. You know, I said the Nigerian people have failed. We failed ourselves because each and every one of us has a role to play. Agreed, there are lead agencies and the government has the greater responsibility. But you look at it, in most cases, some of these criminal elements, take for instance the bandit leaders and kidnappers, they all emanated from a particular society, from a particular community, from a particular family. And in most cases, and always make reference to Hausa saying, and maybe I will say it in Hausa, then I will translate it literally in English. Whenever whenever you see, well, let's say a stupid old man, definitely it is a stupid young man that grew up. So the society, you know, the upbringing, the educational system and everything is building on the family upbringing and all the rest. And some of these criminal elements, the society knew them long time ago, and they kept on progressing in life and in their nefarious character, in career. So this is what I mean. But beyond that, again, there are certain things that we ought to deal with had not been dealt with. Take, for instance, the criminal system. The criminal justice system is slow. But what are we doing about it? Look at the issue of corruption. We all know about it. What are we doing about it? And it permeates all segments of the Nigerian society. And when you accumulate all this things to a large extent has corresponding effect on the security challenges. And that is why security at a landscape is predicated on the political, social, and economic well-being of the society. So that is what I mean. So now coming back to what you are saying, with all these things that you have said, now let's look at the reaction time. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier on. If the system is working, whenever there is kidnap, people will know whom to report to, what to do. Not that they are left to their own initiatives and devices, you know, crowdfunding and what have you. I have told you about the issue of keeping the ransom money even at the police headquarters whenever the need arises. But definitely it is marked and it will be traced. So this is the issue. Then when you look at also the chain, the value chain of kidnapping, there are people that give information, there are people that negotiate, there are people that keep, there are people that give the logistics. Who are these people? Where do they live? We have had instances, take for instance some of the states that have taken initiative, prominent individuals that were living larger than life, now they are being apprehended or being implicated. And the society was quite aware. During events, they are the libraries givers and all the rest, you know, the benefactors to so many people. So these are the issues. But of course, you don't blame the people, simply because everybody has to make end meet. The system is not working to support individual legitimate ambition. I talked about the local government system. I talked about the issue that, in fact, even loan scheme, there are some people, they are really interested in earning a legitimate means of livelihood, but they cannot get source to fund their ambition. These are the issues. So when you look at it, and going back to reaction time, and that is where the layers of the policing system should be interrogated so that people should understand criminal activities or criminal issue or security challenges such as kidnapping are the responsibility of the police. To what extent have you programmed or empowered the police to react? And to what extent have you educated and empowered the people to react? So these are the issues. So beyond that, you see so many layers of reaction, police, military. And unless we harmonize and coordinate the activities of these people, as enshrined in the National Security Strategy of 2019, so we will still be having this problem that we are talking about. So, but then again, we really have to look at what do we have in these present circumstances, and how do we make use of it to deal with the security challenges? These are the issues, but a lot need to be done in terms of coordination.
General, the bigger issue, you are quoting the National Security Strategy 2019, where we are in 2024, because that strategy has not worked. And Nigerians have been saying, maybe it's about time we took a second look at the so-called national security architecture that people in the security sector are perpetually mouthing. But my question, do you think that the government is really serious about addressing this menace of kidnap for ransom that has become big business, perhaps one of the most thriving businesses in Nigeria? And then what do we do? What should we do about the banks? I read one report saying that the banks are the ones, in fact, encouraging the growth of the kidnapping industry. Because ransom is not just paid by carrying cash to police station or carrying cash to the kidnappers. Sometimes there are cash transfers. Sometimes the money is paid directly through the banks. And yes, we have a Money Prohibition and Laundering Act of 2022 in place. And yet the banks transfer this money. They say they do KYC. They don't know their customers again. What should we do about these banks that provide a channel for payment of ransom?
Yeah, well, the issue of whether government is serious or not serious, and I believe it is very, very serious. However, just like everything, Nigerians want to see results, so there is still more room for improvement. And this is a clarion call for those who are statutorily responsible for the securing of life and property in this country to wake up and get their acts very well and coordinate and cooperate with each other to ensure that Nigeria is better secured than it were. Then issue of banks. It is not just the bank. I enumerated people involved in the value chain of the criminal activity of kidnapping. So in most instances, bank is just one. But what happened to the informant? What happened to the other people that negotiate? So many and so on and so forth. And even the ordinary person on the street that is not so much, enlightened security-wise, when he sees or she sees something, whom will he report to, and what will he do, and so on and so forth. These are the issues that we need to tackle. Then coming back to the bank, it is not just the bankers. I kept on saying, actually, I cannot imagine an average kidnapper. In fact, you there in Lagos, you will be very, very apprehensive if you at least have ₦1 million on you. Even though you understand, so what more in the bush? So that means somebody somewhere is investing this money. So how do they invest it? So unless we follow the money, definitely we'll still have problems. But it is not just the banks, but what of other people that collect data that has not been harmonized. Here in Abuja, you can commit an offense in Lugbe, and all you need to do is to move to Maitama, nothing will happen. Unless if by mere chance you commit another offense and you are apprehended, possibly they will remember. So these are the issues. So it's a whole thing. And going back to security architecture, it has always been interrogated. I could remember way back, 2018, my course Sec 40 at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies went all the way to interrogate internal security framework in Nigeria, community policing, policy options, recommendation and implementation strategies. We went to almost 40 MDAs in this country, 12 states of the Federation, 6 other countries in Africa, 6 other countries outside the African continent, and we made priority recommendation and implementation strategies that even address the issue of community policing. The issue is the political will to implement some of these recommendations. That is where the problem lies. The
political will. Well said. Thank you so much, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, for your time with us this morning. Just reviewing or perhaps taking a look at the security architecture as it currently stands and some of the changes that ought to be made as recommended. Thank you for your time today.